What up, what up? Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. On this podcast, we talk about crowdfunding, and more importantly, we talk about you, your business. We talk about how do you actually incorporate crowdfunding into your lives. You can launch your dreams. You can have business ideas, products, services that you are bringing to the world. You can make an impact on the world. And today's podcast episode is just going to be between you and me, my friend. And that's because we're going to be doing a special 2023-2024 episode, kind of talking a bit about the opportunity for crowdfunding in 2024, but also recapping a tiny bit of 2023. So if you're thinking about raising money from the crowd this upcoming year, if you want to launch a new product, if you want to launch a new business, you want to do a startup company, or even something more in the nonprofit realm or the charity realm, crowdfunding is one of these powerful tools which you can use to not only get funding, but also to amass a tribe of people that are excited about what you do. So going into next year, if you're armed with the right information and the right data, not only can make the best decisions possible, but also you are far more likely to be successful and get the results that you crave. So let's get into this episode and really dive into 2024 projection forward. Is this a good year for crowdfunding? And also the previous year, and recapping some of the major milestones we saw in 2023. All right. So I'd like to start off the episode, first of all, talking about two major topics. So first of all, we're going to be talking a lot about Kickstarter and Indiegogo, which are definitely the two hallmark platforms when it comes to crowdfunding, and as well talking about equity crowdfunding, which is kind of like the new kid on the block, and really getting into whether or not this is something you should explore this upcoming year. And lastly, we'll be kind of getting more into actually success stories and people who have seen success from the podcast, Crowdfunding Demystified, some of the incredible interviews which we've covered this year that I would like to highlight that you can go and check out on your own time. So first of all, I think that one of the biggest questions that I get nowadays is, Sal, crowdfunding has been around for a while now, right? I got started in the crowdfunding industry back in 2012 when the Jobs Act was first starting to be pushed through Congress, and with Kickstarter and Indiegogo kind of being a nascent, small website, and then people started to see millions of dollars being raised on these different sites, and they realized that crowdfunding was possible. And one of the questions I get is, Sal, in 2024, is this really a viable way to get funding online? Is this a viable way to get my ideas off the ground? And I want to kind of point your attention to an incredible statistic, which actually is the cumulative funding. Looking at a statistic in front of me, the cumulative funding of the amount pledged to Kickstarter projects from July of 2012 to November of 2023. So if we look at this cumulative amount, not only is it growing, and it's actually grown a lot, incredible amount in 2020 and going up for 2021, 2022. I think honestly the pandemic kind of lit a fire underneath crowdfunding. But if we actually tally the cumulative amount of dollars that have been pledged to Kickstarter worldwide, it's been in excess of 7.6 billion US dollars, 7.6 billion. And the biggest project ever was Brandon Sanderson's 4 secret novels, which he released in 2022, which was last year. He released this and it raised $40 million in the United States for his crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter. So for those of you that maybe are like, okay, Kickstarter is maybe not in the news headlines as much as it used to be because it's no longer a novel new thing, at the same time, we saw the biggest project ever this past year with Brandon Sanderson's book raising $40 million, and this year has grown even more when it comes to crowdfunding. And in total, cumulatively, just with Kickstarter, not even talking about Indiegogo, they've raised over $7.6 billion in terms of funding dollars. So first of all, I would say one big takeaway from this year is that crowdfunding is still continuing to grow. Now, the question in my mind is, okay, it's growing, but which categories are growing, right? And this is really what I did my logistics regression thesis on, my mini econ thesis back in 2012 when I was attending George Washington University, looking at the different categories on Kickstarter and on Indiegogo. And what you'll notice is that there's actually been a really big surge in a couple of different categories. Of course, there is the hardware and the design and technology product category, which continues to go strong. But I would argue that a lot of the growth this year and last year has actually come from the comics category and has come from the tabletop gaming category. I'm looking at one statistic in front of me, which was in the first half of 2023, and it was up 14% from the first half of 2022. So immediately just from this stat, it was already up by 14% in the first half of this year, and it continued to grow throughout the year with some major campaigns. For example, the expansive Dragon Tooth raised $1.4 million as a comic book. How to Think When You Draw, Volume 6 as a comic book raised $800,000 on Kickstarter. Power Rangers, the 30th anniversary comic book celebration, raised $600,000 on Kickstarter for a comic book, my friends. So comic books is an incredibly strong category on Kickstarter, and it's only growing and going to continue to grow, has a really high margin as well when it comes to that. And tabletop games, card games are like, it's bananas, right? It's crazy the way in which tabletop gaming has changed. Some of the other really, I think, interesting stats here are coming from some of the major campaigns on Indiegogo. So for those of you who don't know, Indiegogo is Kickstarter's competitor. There's some great things about the platform as well as with Kickstarter. And I'm an independent person. I don't mind if you go with Indiegogo or Kickstarter, but just a couple of different interesting projects that I want to call out here was GDP Win. This is a gaming and productivity unleashed product. They raised $3.9 million on Indiegogo. This was an incredible campaign that happened this year. Also, Ayanyo 2, The New Dawn for handheld gaming, another great gaming project, raised $2 million on Indiegogo. We've seen a lot of gaming and technology products which were launched on Indiegogo. Another, the Hover X1 visual storytelling takes flight. This is actually a really cool product. It is a pocket-sized self-flying camera, kind of like a drone almost, like a mini drone. This is a pocket-sized, so you can fit it in your pocket, you can take it out, and it will actually fly and take video of you. Maybe I should get one of those guys so I can go and vlog about my day. Honestly, most of my day would probably be pretty boring, just mainly cranking out new books, new content, new courses, new videos, new podcasts, new YouTube videos, right? It might be a little bit boring in that way, but it is still fun as well. So anyway, this campaign raised $1.6 million on Indiegogo. So a lot of great projects which have been successful on Indiegogo for sure as well this year. I wanted to kind of also highlight a couple that I think are really noteworthy within our own show, the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. So on this show, my goal is to show you what the heck is possible, right? If you're trying to go out there and trying to raise money successfully from the crowd, how can you do it? How can you execute on it? And really, how do you make this something that, anyone can do? So a great example of this, in my opinion, is episode number 451. I can't believe it, guys. We've actually gotten over 400 episodes of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. And this is just based on persistence, right? This is just really based on grit and wanting to share this message with you so you can go out there, you can kick ass, you can take names, you can smash through your goal on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, and you can get the funding that you deserve. Here's a great example. This project raised over $500,000 for a whole new startup, which is a next generation smart helmet for urban and road riding. If you go and you want to listen to the story, you will hear the testament of the power of crowdfunding and in also listening to your crowd. This creator was able to launch multiple campaigns, raise money successfully multiple times on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And in this incredible episode 451, they shared with you exactly how they did it. So if you're interested in learning more about that, go and check out that episode at 451 in the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Another really interesting episode, and I think there's a lot of great ones out there, honestly. I think that if you have a product idea, if you have something you're trying to execute on, there's so many examples of success stories. Just go back and listen to the archives of the show. Another great episode is episode number 447. This is how a sponge, literally a sponge, a household item, raised $359,000 from 11,847 backers. Think about that. 11,000 people around the world decided that they were not happy with their sponge. They were fed up. And just because this is something that's, not really been rethought, a household item, this is something where you can enter the market, you can really think through things better, create better solutions for people. And again, you can raise over $300,000 for more than 11,000 people with this campaign. So you can go and you can listen to this episode. I think this, individual Anthony actually shares some great hard-learned lessons, tips, strategies, which he applied to his successful campaign, going from literally prototype idea to fulfillment. And you can learn that every step of the way if you want to go and listen to this episode number 447 of the podcast, How a Sponge Raised $359K. So really great episode. Another one that kind of, to me, was, just really interesting. And one of those, I guess, in a different category was more so on the tabletop game category. So if you're thinking about doing a tabletop game, you want to listen up because this is the episode for you. A great episode that we did this year. And also, it's a really cool concept. I love travel, my friends. Every time I travel outside of the United States, whether I'm going to South Korea or going to different places in Asia, go to Thailand, right? There are so many great product ideas which I have. And this game actually is all about going to Japan. Japan is like, my gosh, they're so cool the way they come up with inventive small products to solve every single problem in our daily lives. If you want to listen to this episode, this individual raised $703,386 on Kickstarter for a tabletop game. This episode is episode number 446. And when you listen to this, you're going to hear about how he was able to develop an entire game around let's go to Japan, just planning a trip to Japan, which is actually like super cool. This is one of my bucket list items one day, is to go and actually visit Japan and kind of experience that world a little bit more. But if you want to understand what's the creative mindset, what do you have to do in order to actually get a campaign of that size, what did and didn't work for this team, you want to go and listen to this episode. And again, if you're trying to do more entertainment related, like a card game or a comic book, I think episode number 446, which is again raising $703,000 on Kickstarter, is a great one to listen to if you are interested. If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist, and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist, fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately. So we talked a little bit about Kickstarter. I want to kind of shift focus a tiny bit to equity crowdfunding. So equity crowdfunding is, in my opinion, the one thing that is having mega breakout success this year. And that's because we're seeing just a phenomenal transformation in society where more and more people are deciding, hey, I want to do a startup company. I want to go big. One day I want to do an IPO or I want to sell my company. And you know what? I'm willing to get investors involved. So Kickstarter is great. Indiegogo is great. If you're trying to pre-sell a product, if you're trying to get a bunch of customers, people to support you, right? Incredible for those reasons. If you want to get investors to invest in your company, to become shareholders in your company, and to be able to do like a Shark Tank style raise, that's exactly what equity crowdfunding is, and it's doing it online. So first of all, there's some great stats out here by the crowdfunding capital advisors. I'm going to first reference some stats from Q2 of 2023. So according to their data, Q2 showed steady growth of equity crowdfunding. If we look at this, there's actually been 355 total investor commitments at $151.7 million just in Q2 when it comes to equity crowdfunding, and almost 99,400 investors backed an online securities offering. So I would say this is still not as big as, maybe other forms of crowdfunding, but it's huge. Think about that. 151 million in investment capital going directly into your startup company. At the time of this report, WeFunder was the top platform for Reg CF, also known as regulation crowdfunding, raising over $80 million through 316 new offerings. Start Engine and Republic followed suit at $28 million and $13 million respectively. So the first thing I would take away from that is regulation crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding is something that's happening. No one is talking about it. I'm like the only person who's really, shouting from the rooftops, my gosh, this is a possibility for you. If you want to launch a new startup company, if you want to launch a new software company, an app, even something more physical like real estate, and you want to raise capital from the crowd, you can do that using equity crowdfunding. And you can get shareholders and evangelists excited about your business, right? And to me, this is something where just previous generations of entrepreneurs didn't have access to this, right? This is something where you are so freaking lucky that you can actually gain access to a whole suite of people that are excited and actually participating and becoming a part of your startup company. So a couple of really interesting as well, sort of changes and things that are happening within equity crowdfunding realm. So there's been a lot of speculation. So recently, the SEC made it so that you can actually raise upwards of $5 million under regulation crowdfunding. And a lot of people behind the scenes in the crowdfunding industry are now actively pushing Congress to move that amount to $20 million. Which means you'd be able to raise even more money from the crowd using this equity crowdfunding phenomenon. Some other really interesting, stats when it comes to this. I actually want to bring up a couple of episodes which I've done on the podcast that I think you would find quite interesting. So the first is episode number 473. And this is really an inventor and a startup founder broke down exactly how they raised $1.2 million in startup investment using equity crowdfunding. So if you've been interested in how can I do $1 million equity crowdfunding campaign? How can I raise capital from the crowd and get investors excited about my business? This person broke down exactly what they did in order to do that when it comes to their incredible company. And this is for robot teams. Another great example, because I know people will hear that and they're like, you know what, Sal, I understand this is something you can do, but what if I have more of a physical product, right? What if I have something like a motorcycle and I want to raise money for that? Well, in episode number 472, Curtis came on my my podcast here, and this team actually shared how the Curtis motorcycle bagged $692,000 in startup funding on WeFunder. This is a great example of how even if you have a physical product, if you're a serial entrepreneur or you want to raise capital from the crowd, you can do that using a platform like WeFunder. You can hear more about that. The founder of Curtis Motorcycle, Matt Chambers, again on the podcast at episode number 472. I'm going to give you one or two other examples here because I do think it's great to get a couple of different, types of projects. If you've been interested in real estate, right, and you're looking to raise capital using crowdfunding for real estate, this year I did an incredible interview with Zenny Homes. Zenny Homes raised $5.8 million in fresh funding to create minimalistic homes using equity crowdfunding. $5.8 million. And these are robotic smart homes. It's actually really interesting and a great idea, in my opinion. And they raised this funding on WeFunder, which is one of the top equity crowdfunding platforms that are out there. The last one I'll go into, and I think that there are so many great examples of this again in the podcast. Episode number 462 shares how this individual was actually able to raise $2.2 million using equity crowdfunding for Psionic, which is the world's first multi-touch sensing bionic hand. So many different applications, of course, when it comes to manufacturing, when it comes to healthcare, right? There are a lot of great applications for that. And it's actually a really young founding team that actually did this successful raise. And this was $2.2 million when it comes to that. So in terms of this year, I would say there's so much opportunity, whether you're doing a physical product, if you're doing a Kickstarter or Indiegogo, or you're trying to raise money using crowdfunding in terms of equity crowdfunding in a campaign like that. The question that I have for you is this: what is holding you back? There are no more excuses, my friend. This upcoming year, it can be a challenging year. It can be a year of opportunity, or it could be a year where you say, you know what? I'm finally fed up with just talking about my idea. I'm finally fed up with not taking enough action, with not meeting the right people, with not engaging and using digital marketing to power my campaign forward. My gosh, it's been however long and I'm only this far. You know what? I'm going to make a resolution. I'm going to make a goal that 2024 is going to be the best year ever. That I'm actually going to lean into the things that I'm a little bit afraid of. That scare me a tiny bit, right? I'm actually going to be willing to put myself out there, and I'm going to take the actions necessary to see the results that I want. Now, I think that if you're willing to make that commitment, first of all, hats off to you, because anyone who makes that commitment, like, my gosh, they got my respect, right? It's hard to innovate, to come out with a new product, to do something new. I'm trying to share with you some of these stats so that you realize you're not the only person out there who's doing this, right? This is a smart decision. This is an intelligent decision. Other people are raising money from the crowd. So why not you? It might have been a long journey to get to this point. It might have been a lot of legwork, hassles, headache. It could even be difficult when it comes to your personal life or your family. I don't know about the road that you've gone on to get here, but I will tell you one thing, and that's this upcoming year, it's your decision. It's really, life is in your hands, and you can decide to be pushed around by life and you maybe put things off and not take things so seriously, or you can really take it by the reins. You can really make your mark upon the world, and you can decide that you're going to make this year yours. And I would love that for you if you make that commitment. And even just that mindset, I'm telling you, will lead you far forward into the future, almost as though you're marching right towards where you want to go, and no longer just kind of lackadaisically looking around, making a little bit of progress here and there. But no, you are marching towards the future, excited about it every single day. And most importantly, being willing to educate yourself as well. Admitting, hey, I want this thing a lot. Maybe I don't know everything, but I'm willing to learn it. And that's exactly why, my friends, I have this podcast here for you, why I have my YouTube channel for you, why I have my books that I've written for you, the blog that I have. I'm sharing all of this transparently, most of it for free with you, so that you can take steps towards your goal, so that one day you can come back on this podcast and you can become that success story. So I wish that the most for you this upcoming year, and also that you've taken away a couple of great lessons when it comes to this. At this point in time, I'm going to go over a couple of new things that we're doing at CrowdCrux. If this is something that you're not ready to yet, learn about, or you're more interested in diving into some of the other episodes, this would be a great opportunity to do that. But I'm going to close off this episode just kind of going through a couple of milestones that I've had with my company, CrowdCrux. So first of all, my friend, I love working with students, coaching students, doing marketing for clients. Like, it's one of the things that I come to work every day and I feel like so lucky that I get to work with just such intelligent people, and people that are, willing to, put their money where their mouth is and execute on the visions that they have to solve real problems in the world. I feel so grateful and privileged to be able to do that. So one of the things that I want to do this upcoming year is just to expand that ability which I have, which is to demystify different topics for you. So for example, one of the great books that we came out with recently was a book on how to become a business coach. That's one of the books that we published this year. Lo and behold, it's actually doing really well. And I'm starting to actually venture beyond just the topic of crowdfunding. So I've been doing coaching now for many years, and I've had a lot of people ask me, Sal, how do I become a business coach like you? How do I become a consultant or a coach? How do I share the things I know with the people that I know could benefit from that? So I actually wrote a book on business coaching. And for me, that was definitely a milestone when it comes to getting that work out there. In addition, we decided to actually even grow beyond the general topic of Kickstarter, and we put out a book teaching you how to raise money if you are a musician. And we actually partnered on this book when it comes to that. So this is actually part of me and Ian Anderson coming together with this content to actually publish this book out there. And it's great. It's available. And I'll make sure to include a link down below so you guys can check it out. But we published a new book basically teaching musicians some of the crowdfunding secrets which they need to know if they want to get funding, specifically in the 10,000 to 50,000 realm. And that was kind of, for me, one of the experiences of actually partnering with someone else, a musician, to get this content out there and really adding more of the marketing side on my components. That was a major milestone for us as well. In addition, we have recently completed a course on nonprofit fundraising and really delivering an entire different set of tactics and tools and strategies to nonprofits out there that want to raise funding from the crowd. And I don't think this has been done at all in the industry. And I really drawn upon so many different years of helping nonprofits and working with nonprofits. And as well, I've obviously written the book, Nonprofit Crowdfunding Explained, Nonprofit Fundraising Hacks. And we finally buckled down, put a lot of work into a course to help nonprofits out there get the funding that they need from the crowd and to do online fundraising campaigns easily with literally just like a push of the button, just kind of copying a lot of stuff that we included in the course. And we'll be announcing that very soon. Another great milestone that we had, and this is actually something more recent that I'm going to be announcing soon. So if you're on my newsletter, this is something you might hear about, but I've gotten tired about always executing campaigns for other people. And that's because I think that people are smart. I think they're talented. And I think that they can do their own campaigns. They just need a little bit of guidance and handholding. However, there has been a new development in the world, which has made it so much easier for anyone to launch a Kickstarter campaign. And that development is AI, artificial intelligence. So we are going to be announcing a new entire module with the Smash Your Kickstarter Goal course, an online course that we have that's really showing you how to execute a crowdfunding campaign, specifically a Kickstarter campaign or Indiegogo campaign using AI. So if you've ever been wanting to just with a press of a button, launch a campaign and have AI do all of the work for you, we are going to be announcing that quite soon on my email list, on my newsletter. And if you want to check that out, just go to crowdcrux.com/newsletter. You can join my Killer Crowdfunding Tips newsletter, which I put out every single week, sharing free tactics and tips with you. So the final announcement that I have, and something that I'm super proud about, is a lot of the times, people that are working with me are like, Sal, you get to work with all these different students and these readers and podcast listeners and YouTube viewers. Like, is that what you're most proud of, right? That you get to do that? And for me, actually, what I'm most proud of is the team that I work with. I have an incredible team, and I don't talk about it enough, but I have an incredible team that works behind the scenes at CrowdCrux, and we've all decided to commit to these values, which we all share as part of the company culture. And we've kind of put these into a acronym, if you will, which is called ALERT. And ALERT is meant to stand for what I'm about to mention. So it starts with A, which is ambition and continuous learning. Everyone who works for me at my company is ambitious and they're always learning. It's almost like one of those things where we try to crystallize the habits that have led us to be successful so far as a company. And ambition is one, being willing to actually want more than maybe that you've ever thought was possible. Being willing to become more, to be able to get that which you want, which is continuous learning. So we have A, ambition and continuous learning. L, which is loyalty and transparency. I'm a huge believer in being loyal to people who are kind to you, to people who help you out along the path. And, that's served me super well in my own life, but also within my own business networking and relationships. I think transparency as well is so incredibly important. The lack of transparency that I witnessed in this industry, the crowdfunding industry, is one of the reasons why I decided to start the podcast. One of the reasons why I started the YouTube channel is just to share with you what's happening behind the scenes to get these projects funded, right? Transparency is so incredibly important, in my opinion. We also have a value of empathy. Empathy is being able to understand someone else's perspective and opinion. And maybe that's of your customers, maybe that's of people that are interested in your product, your teammates, etc. Empathy is a huge value, which we all have. R, resilience and ruthlessness. Resilience is the ability to persevere. Something might not go so well for a couple of months. And you know what? You just got to be resilient. You got to keep marching towards that goal. And ruthlessness, being willing to go after what you want, if it's really something that you value, something that's going to improve the world, and being willing to go after that. Like a certain ruthlessness, I think, is so incredibly important as an entrepreneur, as a creator, as a business person, and even as a creative type, because it's kind of that competitive nature, willing to be ruthless, to go after those things, to ethically improve the world with your products and your services. I think it's so incredibly important. And the last one is T, which is team collaboration. And we're a very collaborative team. We all share these values. It's a great culture when it comes to CrowdCrux. And we are a huge proponent of this is a team, right? This is the sum of the parts, or what we can do as a joint group, is far more powerful and far more significant than what any one of us could do individually. So those are a couple of the accomplishments that we have this year. There are so many more which I could list, but I do not want to spend an entire hour, right, going through all of these. I'll end on this note, which is that if you've made it this far, first of all, thank you so much for your time. I really hope that you found a little bit of light into my company and some of the things we've been doing to be interesting, as well as our focus on providing quality education to the masses, quality coaching as well, and helping select clients launch their digital marketing campaigns for their business, as well as our commitment to being ambitious on your behalf or encouraging that within our students, to always be learning and providing that education for other people, and to also execute with integrity and to ethically dominate and really take over the world with whatever product is that you're trying to get out there. Thank you so much, man. If you're listening to this on iTunes, please give me a positive rating and review. Give me a thumbs up on YouTube if you did enjoy this. Come subscribe if you're listening to this on YouTube. And lastly, go and check out the links in the description for everything that I mentioned on this episode, so that way you can go and check out some of the things that I was referencing here. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.